Okay, so picture this. It's July 14th, 2014. A billion people are watching the World Cup final in Rio de Janeiro. Confetti is falling. Flags are waving. For one night, Brazil is the center of the universe. Now fast forward 2 years. The Mané Garrincha Stadium in Brasilia, the most expensive arena built for that tournament, $900 million of taxpayer money, is hosting a local league match. Attendance? 400 people. In a stadium built for 72,000. The parking lot has been converted into a bus depot. The offices are being used by civil servants. And in Cuiabá, another World Cup stadium, homeless squatters have moved into the locker rooms. This is what happens after the world stops watching. Since 1976, almost every country that has hosted a World Cup or an Olympics has been left with the same thing. Billion-dollar stadiums that nobody needs, nobody fills, and nobody can afford to maintain. Researchers call them white elephants. I call them the most expensive ruins on Earth. And the numbers? Honestly, they're worse than I expected. 12 of the last 14 World Cups ended in net economic losses for the host cities. The total bill across those tournaments runs into the hundreds of billions. And the pattern keeps repeating, because FIFA keeps finding new countries willing to believe they'll be the exception. They never are. The modern curse of the mega-event stadium starts in Montreal, 1976. The city's mayor, Jean Drapeau, wanted to build something spectacular for the Summer Olympics. He promised it would be modest. He actually said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the Olympics could no more have a deficit than a man could have a baby. The original budget for the Olympic Stadium was 134 million Canadian dollars. The final bill? 1.5 billion, more than 10 times the estimate. Quebec taxpayers didn't finish paying it off until 2006, 30 years after the closing ceremony. They literally funded the debt through a special tax on cigarettes for 3 decades. And the stadium itself? It never worked properly. The retractable roof tore repeatedly. It can't host events in winter because of snow damage. By the time the debt was cleared, the Montreal Expos baseball team had already left. Today, the stadium sits mostly empty, still costing taxpayers millions a year in subsidies just to keep the lights on. Montreal was the warning. Nobody listened. South Africa, 2010. The country spent over $3 billion to build and renovate 10 stadiums for the World Cup. In Polokwane, they built a brand new 45,000-seat arena, right next to an existing 20,000-seat stadium that had been perfectly adequate. Neither has a Premier League tenant. In Nelspruit, the Mubombela Stadium sits with no suitors at all. And in Cape Town, the stadium that cost $600 million to build has never once turned a profit. The city still subsidizes it with tens of millions of rand every single year, 16 years after the final whistle. Then came Brazil, 2014. And honestly, this is where it goes from bad to absurd. Brazil spent over $11 billion preparing for the tournament. They built 12 stadiums across 12 cities. The problem? 4 of those cities, Manaus, Brasilia, Cuiabá, and Natal, didn't have a single team in Brazil's top 3 football divisions. The Arena da Amazônia in Manaus, deep in the rainforest, accessible only by boat or plane, cost $300 million. After the World Cup, it hosted 11 events in 5 months. Local league matches drew fewer than 1,000 people in a 44,000-seat stadium. Monthly maintenance? $250,000. For a building that mostly sits empty in the jungle. And the corruption? Rio's mayor later estimated that 30 to 40% of the construction costs across all 12 stadiums were inflated by fraud. At the Mané Garrincha in Brasilia, auditors found that transportation of prefabricated grandstands was billed at $1.5 million for a job that should have cost $4,700. Russia, 2018. Same pattern. $14 billion, 12 stadiums. In Volgograd, a 45,000-seat arena was handed to a local club with average attendance of 3,800. In Saransk, a city of 300,000 people. The Mordovia Arena was supposed to become self-sustaining within 3 years. Instead, the local club dissolved in 2020. The stadium now sits partially derelict. And then there's Qatar, 2022. $220 billion, the most expensive sporting event in human history. 7 brand new stadiums. Less than $10 billion went to the actual arenas. The rest was infrastructure, metro systems, hotels, airports. Qatar's annual GDP is about $180 billion, which means the country spent more than a full year's economic output on a month-long football tournament. One of those stadiums, Stadium 974, built from shipping containers designed to be dismantled after the tournament, is still standing as of 2026. Nobody's taken it apart. Nobody's shipped it anywhere. It just sits there. So here's what I think is really going on. And it's actually kind of dark when you see the pattern. FIFA generates billions from every World Cup. Broadcasting rights, sponsorships, merchandise, ticket sales. For the 2026 cycle, FIFA expects about $13 billion in total revenue. That money goes to FIFA. But the costs? The stadiums, the security, the transportation upgrades, the crowd management, the fan zones? Those fall on the host cities. Local governments absorb the risk while FIFA collects the reward. A professor of sports economics at the College of the Holy Cross put it pretty bluntly. The revenue projections that host cities receive before a World Cup are essentially promotional press releases, not serious economic analysis. And yet countries keep lining up, because hosting the World Cup isn't really about economics. It's about prestige. It's about a nation telling the world, we've arrived. South Africa wanted to rewrite the post-apartheid narrative. Qatar wanted to put itself on the global map. Russia wanted to project power. The problem is that prestige doesn't pay maintenance bills. And 4 years after the spotlight moves on, you're left with a 45,000-seat stadium in a city that needs hospitals. Now here's where the story gets interesting, because someone finally figured it out. The 2026 World Cup, happening right now across the United States, Canada, and Mexico, is doing something no modern mega event has done. It's using stadiums that already exist. NFL stadiums, MLS stadiums, arenas that already have teams, already have fans, already have revenue streams. No new builds, no billion-dollar white elephants. It sounds obvious, right? Use what you've got. But it took 50 years and hundreds of billions of wasted dollars for the world to arrive at that conclusion. Whether the 2026 approach actually works economically, whether host cities break even or still end up subsidizing the spectacle, that's a story we'll know in a year or two. But at least this time, nobody's building a $900 million stadium in a city with no football team. And yet, Saudi Arabia has already been awarded the 2034 World Cup. New stadiums, a futuristic host city, projected costs that could rival Qatar's. So maybe the lesson hasn't been learned after all. The next time you watch a World Cup match in a gleaming new stadium, remember, someone is going to be paying for that seat for the next 30 years. And it probably won't be FIFA. If this story changed how you think about the world's biggest sporting events, subscribe to Boardroom Files. I dig into the stories behind the biggest business empires and the most expensive mistakes every single week. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.